very happy New Year to you. I'm Satish Jha. I'm getting back to you after quite some time, and this time in English. And this is part of the reason is personal, and part that today is the occasion. We have an opportunity to take stock of how it was that we experienced our last year. And a few things will stand out, and I want to take a summary of that to share with you my perspective of how 2024 can be seen and probably a forecast for 2025. It's a very short session, but I hope that we'll be able to cover some points. When I look at 24, I think the most important event of that have been, in my opinion, the first is genocide in Gaza. Second is the election of Trump again, defeating Biden despite the greatest economy that Biden gave. Third is the passing of the founder of modern economy of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh. These will basically give us pointers to understand how our 2024 closed for us and how it laid the foundation for the coming year as such. Gaza has been a very, very important story, and India was steadfast in supporting Palestinian cause for quite some time until the past 10 years, our policies changed. If those who recall, India used to issue passport, which was not valid for South Africa and Israel. South Africa became a very friendly nation in due course of time when Nelson Mandela came. And Israel has been lately a friendly country since Modi and Netanyahu came together. But the fact is, we can't be blinded by friendships alone, given the facts of genocide that's going on. And that's probably since World War II, the greatest tragedy of humankind, which we have not been paying enough attention to. And that's something every single Jewish friend I have, they are very, embarrassed about it. They feel it should not happen. They don't support anything the Israeli state is doing. There's a disconnect between Israeli state and the people of Israel. But people of Israel have chosen that government. That's because, again, the extremist fringe of the population has taken over. And again, as you understand, in democracy, the way elections are managed, they don't really represent the will of the people. Very often, they get managed by better strategies of those who electioneer. And in this case, and in many countries that you have seen, including the US, despite having the best economy, Kamala Harris couldn't become the president, partly because of personality, partly because of organization, the strategies they chose. And Trump was always a businessman who basically fights to lose. Never. He always wins. So his goal is the end justifies the means. And for that, he would do anything. And that's been my perspective on him from the very beginning. When 2015, he came down the escalator, famous escalator, I told one of my partners, who was a former US attorney general, that this man is scary from one point of view. Everyone else is a politician, but he is a businessman who always plays to win, who doesn't know how to lose. And loss is not something he's going to allow his team to ever face. And he kept talking about, we are about winning, you'll see winning, we'll get tired of winning, and so on and so forth. So that person, after losing, the first win itself was a chance winning, it's very random winning, again, because of overconfidence of the Democratic Party. And then he comes in and you saw the global geopolitics change. And that changed considerably the way India's fortunes were linked to it. That said, if you've seen associated with that, Trump is important. Trump's government is important for India because the key driver of Indian economy is the US economy. And in geopolitics, without the US support, India, regardless of how much of chest thumping we do not stand a chance to find or achieve our goals without the support of the US presidency and US economy as such. And they are not exactly the same. You may sometimes be at cross purpose with the presidency, but you can still embrace the economy. But when you're together, it's a much better situation to be in. But all those non-resident Indians in the US who are supporting Trump, because their party leader has said, let's support Trump because Trump is good for India, or Republicans are good for India. That's a general theme I have seen, for which I do not find any rationale in the way I look at life as such. Because for any autocrat, a Republican Party will be a better bet. For anyone authoritarian, Republican Party may be a better bet because it's easier to negotiate with them, and there are a few levers as such to enter their system. While the Democratic Party, there are many ifs, many questions. So manage a Democratic Party situation is a little more difficult. Anyway, now what you're seeing here is Trump did appoint for the first time people at the cabinet, almost the cabinet rank, not really the cabinet, like DNI head will be Kamala Harris, who we should still think of her as an Indian. At least I think of her as all Indian. Of course, culturally she became Black American as well, and she is half Black American, non-American actually. Her father was not an American. He came to America, and he was a very prominent professor of economics. It's not that he was just a nobody. He was a prominent professor of economics, and Indian mother, was a cancer scientist. So I look at Kamala Harris as very, very Indian as such. She's a member of Indian diaspora, and unless we start looking at people who who are like Kamala Harris and they are part of Indian diaspora, I think we are losing quite a bit of India's talent outside. So how did she lose? Because and the kind of people Trump picked up, they are Kash Patel. Now, Kash Patel, if you talk to him, if you see him, probably is not the kind of representative I would think will glorify the Indian heritage. Similarly, if you look at Vivek Ramaswamy, not exactly a leader about whom there are no questions. His entire business story is full of, there are two parts to it. One is he succeeded, other is how much scam did he carry forward with him. The third approach is that anybody Trump chooses will be like him, someone who's full of scams, full of stiffing, who likes to win at all costs and doesn't have any questions of morals and so on and so forth. Now, don't forget that Trump still remains a 90 plus times indicted indicted the courts of America. He's been found guilty, convicted, and now because of being president, he may not actually suffer the consequences. And that's the reason it was important for him to become president. But the fact is that Trump is a person who has never had any morals. He never really put much by the store in the morals of a person as such. He's known for having had more than 4,000 cases, court cases, more than 12,000 cases where he stiffed people. Stiffing means that he takes 100 rupees services or goods from you, and he only pays you 25, 30 rupees, and the rest you can't take from him because he's so rich. So many of the rich people have done that, and Trump is known for that. So that's the kind of challenge India is facing, and this leads to H-1B. Now, please do remember the H-1B has been a very important source of the riches of India today. H-1B means Indians can come to America, work here, get a certain rate, instead of just living in India and getting $20,000 per year, come to America and get $100,000 per year. And that's how the TCS, the Infosys, the Wipros, the Cognizants, and Tech Mahindras, they bring $250 billion a year because America allows H-1B visas. Now, on that, there is a lot of question because of the kind of people who've been chosen by Trump. It has raised questions about the kind of Indians we want in America. And that's led to a debate when Elon Musk, who has become probably more famous than Trump or anybody on the planet today for a variety of good things that he has done to the world, you will notice that Elon Musk was for H-1B, but he was taking a lot of flack. And finally, Trump halfway weighed in favor of Elon Musk, but he hasn't given up, abandoned those who are opposing H-1B either. So he will say that I've been always supporting it on the one hand, and on the other hand, he will also have to placate his own support base, and that's very strong support base that is opposing H-1B. That said, America, being a land of immigrants, can't possibly just go back on it, and they believe in getting talents overseas. The question is the kind of questions raised against the Indian diaspora. They have not been very heartening as such. And that's where our diaspora has to look at how we have been, in some ways, quite a model. Let's not forget that Indian diaspora is the per capita income-wise the richest diaspora in the US today, even richer than the Jews who traditionally have been the richest so far. So the Trump journey, the way it will work out for India is not exactly the way we have thought out. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be a lot of negotiations, and which is a very good thing in some ways. Negotiation is good. You should stand up for your positions and try to find a common ground. Don't stand up in such a way that leads to conflict. Find a common ground. But that's the story. But the third tragic story for us is a kind of you can say a full stop, or rather curtain has been drawn on the legacy of Dr. Manmohan Singh in several ways. His passing is a time to remember how, beginning 1991, Indian economy was changed, courtesy the leader like Narasimha Rao, who spoke less and did a lot. And Manmohan Singh began a journey of changing the Indian modern Indian economy or its foundation. And now, from 91, when India was at $393 per capita income, today we are about close to $2,500 per capita income. But let's not forget one thing. The 10 years of economy that Dr. Manmohan Singh gave India from 2004 to 2014 took India from $700 billion of GDP to $2,200 billion of GDP. That's a 300% growth in 10 years compared to 2014 to 2024, when it went from $2,200 to $3,600 billion. And this is despite the fact that numbers were no longer as neutral as during Manmohan Singh's regime. The reason is that the very person who was head of statistics in the government, Dr. Pranab Sen, he was fired, or he left the government, whichever way it was true. And partly the reason was, or rather mostly the reason was, that he felt data was no longer sacrosanct. It's going to be manipulated, which he declined to manipulate, and he left. And since then, government has been busy. Instead of, if I can't score something, then I'll change the score metrics. So if the world doesn't see us well, we will create our own scoreboard and so on and so forth. Just imagine if in the game of cricket, if we can't win, we start changing the rules of the game and we say we will only play by our rules. Who will play with us? So challenge is that we are part of world economy. We have to be part of world economy. We have to follow some global norms of how the economy works. And here we have serious questions about what Dr. Manmohan Singh did very thoughtfully. I remember, I'll share with you 3-4 anecdotes. I became advisor to Dr. Manmohan Singh in Geneva when he was General Secretary of South Commission. South Commission was a body of all the non-developed countries, about 140 plus countries members of it. Julius Nyerere of Tanzania was the chairman at that time. Our own Seva founder, she was a member of that committee. And Dr. Manmohan Singh was General Secretary, and I became his advisor in technology policy. When he gave me the mandate, he said, beat the West. Our technology policy in the world should be such that we should have access to the best of technology, and they should be able to basically hoard it or monopolize it or have control over that. My point is very simple. If they create it, what is it that our claim to their creation? Why don't we create it? But our creating will take another 50 years. So therefore, we have to create a global world order where if anything gets created, it becomes basically a global public common. And when I sat down to write, I wrote a note for him. It was 40 pages note. When he saw, he found very weak. I said, beyond this is all fiction. The same Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he joins, he comes back as advisor to the Prime Minister, and then becomes UGC chairman, and now he's Finance Minister of Narasimha Rao, and he said, join the West. In 88, I was told to beat the West. In 90, he's saying, join the West. That's the kind of pragmatic person Dr. Singh was. He did not hold on to anything as the last line, except some basic values that he had. But in terms of policy, he was as open as in 88, beat the West, to 90, join the West. Second example I'll give you is in 1975, he was during emergency chief economic advisor. If you listen to him, you will see that he could justify anything. He was the best number 2 you would ever have. And I used to tell members of Planning Commission during his vice chairmanship as well, that I have not seen a single person with the DNA of Dr. Manmohan Singh. Some of my friends looked at him. They thought he was an economist. He said, well, I think he's a very clever, politician as well. But of course, to survive, you have to have some political skills. And Dr. Manmohan Singh was politically very savvy in his environment, but he was not a public leader. I have a serious difference of opinion with many of my friends who think he was the prime minister in the same way as Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, and Modi, or Atal Bihari Vajpayee had done. He was a prime minister appointed by the party. People like Nehru, Indira, Rajiv, and Modi, they won the elections. Vajpayee won the election. They were the leaders on whose name the elections were fought. If the election is not fought in your name and you're not leading it, you are not the prime minister. Prime minister is the person who actually is able to get the people's support in his or her name. Dr. Manmohan Singh was not that. He was a technocrat prime minister. He was a civil servant prime minister. So he was always civil. His 10 years will be known for civility, despite the fact that many often, when I spoke against the government, people will come and say that, well, I said, government could come after you. And I could tell them, look, whenever we speak as citizens, no matter what we speak, it is for the country. We can have different opinions. And if the state goes after us, then there is something wrong with the state. A democratic state must respect freedom of expression and must make sure that my right to say something is protected. And for that, state has to go as far as it must go to make sure that my right to say what I'm saying peacefully is maintained. And that is what the job of the state is. Dr. Manmohan Singh, by and large, allowed that, and his time will be remembered as the kind of dream India had. Of course, he was beaten up by his opponents. And every single thing that he was beaten up for turned out to be false. Be it 2G, the day 2G was broken by Vinod Rai, I had a text message, Kapil Sibal is all wrong. He doesn't get it right. You must oppose it. These are the number of points. The same evening, Kapil Sibal was giving a press conference and he made his points. But probably India had some discomfort with the way things are going, that because things were not moving fast enough. Aspirations were moving faster than the way things were working out. So just imagine, Manmohan Singh created a situation where our aspirations, even at 300% in 10 years, did not get met. And since 2014, we have had a government, even at 70% of achievement, there are people who are so happy with whatever has happened because aspirations just changed from economy and development to basically very different social and political aspects. So for me, 2024, there are a million things that have happened. But these, from India's point of view, highlight where we stand. Now, for 2025, Elon Musk has said, I have a feeling it's going to be great here. And for me as well, if opposition can find a leader who can organize things in a way strategically to basically control or contain the mishandling of situation by the current government, we have a hope. But in any case, every new year brings a new hope, and let's start this journey with a greater hope than the way we are closing 2024, and that is the purpose of the first broadcast of the new year. With that, I take you leave and look forward to having your observations, comments, and have a discourse which will basically carry forward a positive kind of discourse which will help us be a better nation, better democracy, and where instead of being a nation of 2-part Italian and 98-part sub-Saharan Africa, and that is something we should always understand, that despite everything that's been said, we are a nation. Let's not forget, in 1947 began a journey to become economically developed with Korea and China. We were all at around $50 per capita income. By 91, we were at $393, China was $363, and Korea was already at 5,000. And by 93, China was ahead of us. Today, the scorecard is 50,000 for Korea, 20,000 for China, 2,500 for us. Our scorecard is as simple as that. Let's not forget that. But we can change it. And we can change it by thinking positively, by investing in education, by giving us better healthcare, and ensuring infrastructure works. And then people will, take charge and move forward. With that, I wish you a very, very happy new year again, and look forward to meeting you as often as I possibly can. And thank you very much. Bye bye.